Most games come naturally to Australians, but none compares in popularity with their own national code of football. Crowds converge on the main grounds from all directions. It is claimed to be the fastest football game in the world, embodying the science of soccer, the speed of basketball, and the vigour and man-to-man clashes of rugby and the American gridiron game.
Australian rules football is widely popular in Australia today. It originated in Melbourne, Victoria in the 1850s. It's a contact sport with each side having 18 players. It requires kicking, handballing and running with an oval-shaped ball on an oval-shaped field. The oval ground is usually a modified cricket ground. The game's origins are attributed to Tom Wills and a group of friends that helped him develop the game. There's a few theories of exactly what inspired Wills to organise the new kind of football in the colonies. A letter written by Wills indicates a call for the formation of a football club with a code of laws to keep cricketers fit during winter. Wills was a keen English rugby player, and his love for rugby clearly shaped the way this game was formed. Some historians believe that another influence was a game played by Aboriginals known as Marngrook. The game is very similar and shows a lot of similarities to what became the AFL code, although historians disagree on whether Wills had actually played this game with the Aboriginal natives or even saw it being played. All the same, this connection has become culturally important to many Indigenous Australians because the game does follow many similarities to Marngrook. A significant milestone for the AFL was in 1858 when a match was played under experimental rules between Melbourne Grammar and Scotch College, held at Richmond Paddock and umpired by Wills. There's a monument that commemorates these early school matches outside the MCG today. Melbourne Grammar and Scotch College also compete annually in the Cordner Eggleston Cup to commemorate the game. In 1859, the Melbourne Football Club came into being. It's officially one of the world's oldest football clubs. Wills and his friends set up 10 rules for the game, and Australian football evolved from these 10 rules. Throughout the colony, these Melbourne rules were distributed and the game began to grow in popularity. But at first, there were many variations of the rules and one-off matches. Before a game, the rules had to be discussed and agreed upon as there were so many variations of rules at the time. Victorian football clubs, Geelong, Melbourne University and South Yarra started to form and joined a codified league known as the Victorian Rules. Victorian rules football was adopted by South Australia in 1860, Tasmania in 1864 and Queensland in 1866. When New Zealanders started to play the game, it began being referred to as the Australian Rules Football. Rugby-loving New South Wales were introduced to the game in 1877 and WA in 1881. In 1879, the first inter-colony match between South Australia and Victoria was a popular spectacle. The sport became increasingly popular to play, an increasing amount of spectators attended the games. VFL formed out of the wealthiest VFA clubs in 1896, Carlton, Essendon, Fitzroy, Geelong, Melbourne and South Melbourne. Delegates from each club discussed the formation of this new professional competition. The VFL changed a few rules, making 18-sided teams instead of the previous 20 and adding Hawthorn, Footscray and North Melbourne clubs to the competition. The SAFL and the WAFL then began their own competitions. The World Wars saw the game lose many of its best players and some clubs had too many losses to keep going. It was not until the 1980s that Australian rules football became a national competition. In 1982, the South Melbourne VFL club relocated to Sydney and became the Sydney Swans. In the late 1980s, as VFL became increasingly popular, the league formed a national competition. In 1987, the West Coast Eagles and the Brisbane Bears formed and joined the VFL competition. The VFL changed its name to AFL in 1990. Adelaide joined the league in 1991. Fremantle was added as a rival WA team in 1995. The Fitzroy Bears merged with the Brisbane Lions due to some financial difficulties in 1996. Port Adelaide joined the competition in 1997. In 2011, the Gold Coast Suns joined the league and GWS's team, the Greater Western Sydney Giants, were admitted in 2012. The AFL currently has 18 member clubs and is one of the most watched sports in Australia.